Hebrew Vision Live. Good evening, everyone. We want to thank you all for tuning in to Hebrew Vision Live. I'm your host, Mikhail Corbin Yahoo. We have a very special guest. All of our guests are special. But we have a special guest this evening we're going to be having a powerful conversation with. But as usual, before we go ahead and get into our podcast, I want to go ahead and open up with a word of prayer and always invoke the spirit of our ancestors and our Creator. So in the spirit of prayer, hallelujah. Yikadal v'yikadesh shemei rabah. Bi'amadi barak kerute, v'yimelech malkute, v'chayechunu v'yamichunu v'chayeda kol beit Israel, b'galav v'zman kari v'yimeru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mavorach, le'olam ulmei almaya. Yit barak v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar v'yit raman v'yit neseh. V'yit hadar v'yidalei v'yit halal shemei dekudesha berechu. Le'ele min kol barachata v'ashirata, tush bechata v'nechmata, damiran ba'alma, v'yimeru, amen. Sanctified and enhanced may he be throughout the world of his own creation. May he cause his sovereignty soon to be accepted during our lifetime and the life of all the house of Israel, and let us say amen. May he be praised throughout all time, esteemed and celebrated, lauded and worshipped, acclaimed and honored, extolled and exalted. May the Holy One be beyond any song and psalm, beyond all tributes which mortals can utter, and let us say amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah. So we have in our podcast this evening Brother Walter Ray. And we're going to be calling this podcast The Inner World View of Walter Ray. So I want to thank you first and foremost for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
Welcome you to the podcast,
thank
man.
You,
so
we
have a lot of good things to talk about in this hour that we have here. But just open up and let our listeners know who Walter Ray is. You know, just any background you feel is pertinent to getting into this conversation. Just please feel free to share whatever you feel.
Okay. I graduated from Central High School in 1974.
Okay.
Should have came out in 73. Okay. I was a year late, barely made it then. We were doing things that young people do. Sometimes you misguide and get off track. It can be exciting, interesting, although it can cost you your freedom and everything. But anyway, that was my early start in life with Central High School. Went to Seven Oaks Elementary School, went to Martin Luther King Jr. High School. I wrote a book about those early experiences called Coming Clean and Telltale from the Heart, and it covers 1967 through 1971 in my life from the age of 16 till from 12 to 16.
Okay. And
just talking about those experiences. And I tell people not to glorify crime or violence, anything dysfunctional, but hopefully to give a little deeper and better insight into it. Mm-hmm. A lot of us go through a lot of similar experiences. Mm-hmm. So I went to Norfolk State University after I finally graduated. I really wasn't prepared, but I did go for a semester. It was the fourth largest black historical college in the nation in terms of student population in Norfolk, Virginia, in the Tidewater area. Came back here, went to Penn Valley. I didn't really focus. I kind of was a little still ripping and running and doing other things, but I did go. I didn't go back to school until, I think, 1997. I went to KCK Community College, and by then, you know, I'm a grown man, settled, mind-focused, and I barely graduated from high school, but I'm proud and happy to say I got an associate's degree from KCK Community College with a 3.82 grade point average. Phi Theta Kappa International Honor Society on the Dean's List, honor roll every semester. I got 16 A's in a row, got one B out of the whole time I was there. I went to UMKC for, I think, a semester or two. So total, I got like 82 credit hours. I didn't get my bachelor's, but I did go to school, and I love that experience of college. Once I finally focused and got serious with it and took advantage of it. I like that environment of exchanging ideas and learning. Mm-hmm. I could go back and do that again in another life and just make that my life.
Yeah.
So that was a high point, really. Okay. I've written several books. Coming Clean and Telltale from the Heart is the first one. Okay. Didn't know I could write a book, but I challenged myself, and it was based on some things that were happening in my life that were difficult, and a friend of mine gave me some encouragement, some spiritual insight that put me on the path to write this book. And so it's not just about me, it's about the neighborhood, about the people. Dr. King's assassination. When I was in the 7th grade, 12 years old, that's in the book, and how Kansas City responded to it. It's about a lot of things and a lot of people. A lot of it not good, but it's just what was going on in the environment at the time.
Right.
And the guy, I think somebody at this library, somebody told me one time, this is the first, no, it wasn't the library, it's a guy with the Magic organization, the Black genealogy group that meets the first Saturday of every month at Watkins Community Center, 12 to 2. And the secretary is a white guy who has African ancestry. He didn't know it till he got into it. They thought that his great-grandfather was an Indian. Turns out he was black. He was a slave. And he got the book, and he was saying it's the first time he's read a first-hand account of what happened during the riots. And it's not like the definitive account, but it's what I remember, as a child growing up. So I did that. I lived in Ghana, wrote a book while I was there called The African Guide to Success in America. And that was with the hope and intention of providing insight to people from overseas, but it's good. My daughter's an attorney in Houston, and she said the things in it were good for her, too. It's common sense, it's logic, it's insight into things that maybe we don't fully understand or take advantage of. You don't have to have a degree to comprehend it. And then it's about cultural things, too. Letting Africans know the differences here and the things to be mindful of, if not wary of. It's a different place, and you have to approach things differently sometimes. Not just with finances, but with interpersonal relationships. So I did that. And I have one, I don't want to go too far into this writing thing, but I have a book that is in manuscript form I'm going to try to get out this year called Cape Coast, Coming Home Through the Door, No Return. And it's about 350-page book about my first experience in Africa in 2003. I'm probably the first one in my family since slavery to go back. And so I kept a journal while I was there, 80-page journal, and I ended up writing a book about that experience. And I think it's going to be enlightening, and I also think it's going to be hopefully inspirational and having the kind of effect on people that make them see Africa a little differently through a different lens, and maybe want to go and experience it for themselves.
Man, that's powerful.
Then I got one called, this is the last thing.
No, great. This is great, man. Just let it go. Let it go.
I got one called, you can get this at Amazon.com, Rolling with the Hot Sauce. It's a fictional crime novel about a syndicate, black organized crime syndicate operating in Kansas City in the years of the 1980s. I think 86 is when it starts out, 85, 86, 87. And it's totally fiction, but we all know these things happen, and they happen here in my lifetime. And in my first book, Coming Clean, I got a chapter called The Mob. And it's about these real gangsters and killers who had it their way in my early years, and everybody knew about them. Everybody knew the names, and everybody knew who the key people were. When I say everybody, not everybody. But
right. The streets knew.
Yeah, the people in the street knew. And even the youngsters knew. I was like 14 years old when I started hearing the names of the top people. And one, he's still alive. The top one's still alive, as far as I know. One got killed. It was 3 of them. One still in the penitentiary. But anyway, so I wrote the Rolling with the Hot Sauce is not about them, but they did provide the inspiration in a negative way for me to come up with this. And I think it's well written, in my opinion. I'm the author, of course I would think that. But I think it's better written than the first one, and the last one better than this one. So, you grow and you get better, hopefully, as you go. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to go back to your Kansas City experience, man, as far as just growing up and even talking about like your memories of the MLK assassination and how Kansas City reacted or responded to that incident. I think a lot of people look at a lot of the larger cities and see the revolt that took place there, but Kansas City's overlooked. But it was a very intense situation in Kansas City. Can you share some of that?
Yeah. I was at Central Junior High School. I'm in the 7th grade, and I wasn't fully conscious, but I was conscious enough to know who Dr. King was. I didn't know who Malcolm was at the time, but I knew who Dr. King was. I knew the impact that he was having at 12 years old. I'm in the 7th grade. And so when he was killed, I was at my friend Richard Clayton's house right across the street, 37th and Bales. And the news flashed about 7 o'clock in the evening that Dr. King had been shot in Memphis, Tennessee. It was interrupted the regular programming. And it wasn't too long that came on and said that he had died. And right away, the news was all about Dr. King's death, and Memphis went up in flames immediately. I remember that. Memphis, fires burning, what they call riots. And then city after city, the same night Dr. King got killed, if I remember right, city after city, people was taken to the streets and doing what they did. But the thing is, brother, when Dr. King got killed, this had been a reoccurring thing every summer. Riots were, that's what they called them, rebellions, riots. They happened from 67, Newark, New Jersey, 66 or 67, Washington, D.C., Detroit. Riots was part of the environment. It was part of the rebellion process black people were going through, and they were more conscious then than they are now in a broad sense. People were more aware of the difficulty we were living under, more challenging the system, and sometimes it broke out in violence. And a lot of it was for the same thing: police beating up people and killing people. They were responding then, but more so then than they do now. Really, the response was, the pushback was more extreme and determined in the '60s, than it is now. Right. And in the middle of that, Mike, brother, there was a sense for me as a child of hopefulness. You know, we got these riots and burnings and shooting, and they was shooting at the police. But to me, it was a spirit of like freedom is right there at the door. Because in the midst of this chaos and this eruption, you felt hopeful in the midst of that because we was moving. That's what it seemed. So when so that's what happened. So how it broke out here, it was 4 days later. Peace and calm, riots in different cities around the country. The day of his funeral, Kansas City, Missouri School District refused to let the students out. Kansas City, Kansas let them out. They didn't go to school. They honored his funeral by closing the schools. Kansas City, Missouri kept them open. But I just took it upon myself. I stayed home. I ain't going to school today. I stayed home. I watched it on TV, a part of it on TV. I started hearing the helicopter flying, and we had just gotten these helicopters around 67 or 68, the police helicopters. Started hearing these helicopters flying. I go outside, and my neighbor's grandmother across the street, she's come out on the porch, and we both looking, wondering what's going on. And then my neighbor next door, these are all adults, he gets in his car and goes up and comes back, and he says, the kids from Central walked out, and they breaking windows, and they went into the liquor store on 35th in Indiana and started taking stuff, and they taking over the buses. This is what was going on. But it started at Central. Central Senior High School is where it actually started. Okay. The rebellion really, as far as I know, the only thing I ever heard was Central Senior walked out in protest to schools being held. But, they walked out with aggression. So they started turning over cars and setting fires. They went to the junior building. They say the teachers were jumping up under the desk. The white teachers, thought that they were going to be attacked. Right, I don't think they did get attacked, but, they were breaking windows and taking matters in their own hands. Okay, they left Central High School. A crowd of them took over the buses. Nobody's paying, and they went to Paseo High School. Okay. A lot of them from Central went to Paseo High School. Paseo got out.
Now, this was a different location than it was.
No, same location.
It's the same location?
It's the same location. Wow. Before they tore the old school down, it was at that same location where the academy is, up on that hill.
Okay.
They ended up out there, Paseo. Paseo gets out, and now a crowd of these young people, they're on the way to the plaza. And that's where the police met them and turned them around. And so that night, the riot started in Kansas City. Okay. The night of his funeral. Okay. Fire over on Truth, 31st in Indiana, went up in flames. It lasted 3 or 4 days. It was either 3 days or 4 days, but they were burning. But they were also up on rooftops shooting. So when the fire trucks came, people were taking pot shots. And at that time, they didn't have the artillery they have now. They had rifles and handguns. So, we had a lot of stuff in the neighborhood at the time. They had TGNY on 31st Street. We had Milgram's down there.
Wow, right. Yeah. Snacks.
Right, yeah, snacks. Right there. They didn't bother smacks. Right, interestingly enough. But the stuff on the grocery store and the 5 and dime and that stuff went up in flames. And then 31st and Truth, we could stand out. They had a curfew. My brother was going down to Blessed Sacrament doing them 3 or 4 days. They invited people, the youngsters, to come down and blow off steam. He's going down to Blessed Sacrament. The National Guard met him and turned him around. Wow. Bayonets and everything. And so then he said, I think my brother said this, they threw tear gas in on the kids. When they got them inside, police dirty then, they are now, threw tear gas in there while they supposed to be blowing off steam. You would
in the church?
In the church, Blessed Sacrament. Yeah, because it was a boys' club too at the time, so they was meeting it. Police would ride the buses, 2 in the back, fully armed. They was riding to police cars, 4 to a car, during this whole time. So at night, you could hear gunfire sometime, but you could definitely smell the smoke, sometimes tear gas in the air. And it was just, it was on. They was burning up and looting and, doing what people do when they don't have any, they don't feel like they have any other option or alternative, or they're not being heard, and justice ain't nowhere to be seen. Right. You can push people, and this is not unique to us in America. This is all over the planet.
It is.
This is not unusual for people to break windows and take stuff. We condemn each other, all this shouldn't be done. But this is what people do out of frustration, anger, hurt, humiliation. this is their way, the only way they have sometimes to fight back in the moment. It may not be the best way, but people do this all over the planet. Not just in America, not just black people. White folks do the same thing. They do it for a basketball game.
For lesser. I was just about to say, for much lesser reasons. No, it's so interesting you say that. Donald Rumsfeld, I believe it was Donald Rumsfeld, who was on the record as saying revolt is like the response of the oppressed. In so many words, he's saying this is their voice.
It's the language of the unheard.
Exactly.
I heard somebody else say that. Dr. King said something to that effect too. The riot is the voice of the unheard or the voiceless or something like that.
Yeah,
It's a natural, instinctive response. It's not something so peculiar and so dysfunctional about us as black people.
Indeed.
This is what people do on the planet. The Palestinians, they don't have guns and they don't have anything, but they've been pushed and degraded and demeaned so much. So they'll take a knife and go up and stab or throw rocks or whatever. They know the consequences of what's going to blow back on them.
They're gorillas.
Yes,
exactly.
but and they know the consequences. But you just have to do something.
You can only take so much.
Talking about a worldview. Let me just mention this to you, brother. And I ain't trying to start nothing now, but I'm just saying what I've seen.
Yeah.
I'm in Thailand for 2 months. I got a newspaper. I brought the article with me about the Rohingya. They was on Al Jazeera every day talking about it, even on some of the Asian networks. The Rohingya are a minority group in Myanmar and Burma. Aung San Suu Kyi, who got the Nobel Prize for Peace because she was under house arrest for a long time. Now she's in a position of power, and she won't open her mouth about the military massacring this minority Muslim population in Burma. And Burma is a Buddhist country, which is sickening to me. I'm in a Buddhist country in Thailand, and I'm trying to learn about it. I didn't think you all behave like that. It's something about the human species, the way we behave, see. So they killing the Rohingya, setting their houses on fire. The Rohingya don't have no money. They don't have any military. They don't have any arms. They don't have any weapons. But you know what they said? I got it in the newspaper. They said, we're going to fight these people.
Wow.
If it takes sticks and stones.
Wow.
And that's what they started doing. We say we can't fight these people. They got all the weapons. You know, that's what black people say. I've learned some things about us from traveling and looking at us and comparing us to Africans and seeing their nature in us and their spirit in us. We ain't gonna, I don't want to go there yet, but but these Rohingya, they don't have nothing, brother. And they start fighting these people. And the Holy Quran says, praise be to Allah, and I hear Minister Farrakhan repeat it, persecution is worse than slaughter. So you have a right to defend yourself. That's the Holy Quran. The Bible teaches, they taught us the Bible anyway, accept, defeat and turn the other cheek and, pray and these kind of things. They took it out of context and they taught us something and they focused on something that has not done us much good in terms of empowering us. But the Holy Quran teaches it differently. You have a right to self-defense and to defend yourself. So the Rohingya, they're Muslim, they don't have no weapons, but they said, no. But it's terrible. So anyway, that's
powerful. That's powerful. So I want to come back to this the riot thing.
Okay.
Just how does it all settle down? Because we hear how the uprising takes place. What
I'm gonna tell you.
What precipitated the resolution of the conflict?
Shock effect. Sometimes a fire can burn itself out, but in addition to maybe the fire was burning itself out, they rolled in here with 3 tanks on the 4th day. They brought in tanks. We hadn't seen that. And I guess that's enough of a shock. That rifle won't do much good, and it depends on. And then we don't have really a committed, organized resistance.
That's the problem.
It's just people. They anger, boiling over. And we do what we do in the moment, but the moment passed, and then they rolled those tanks in. That was pretty much the end of the riot. But I'm gonna tell you something else now. In the '60s, when people were doing those kind of things that we condemn today, the government was coming with programs, job training, small investments. They were pacifying to a degree, but there was something. They don't come with nothing today. You can't hardly get a job training program. We had summer jobs every year. When I was 14, 15, and 16, you could go to work at 14 years old. We got minimum wage, but we had a summer job the whole summer. And it wasn't limited. Whoever wanted it could get it. They had model cities coming in here doing stuff. They had other kind of things. That's how I know Sonny Gibson. I think I know him from back during that time. Come to think about it, and some other people. So I'm saying the government came with resources and programs in response to this rebellion. They wasn't coming because they thought it was the right thing to do, or because justice is. It's the result of. We don't like to say that, maybe, and people Right. We only got one view of looking at. We got revisionist history. I remember. Right. I was old enough to be there.
You look at that as another like anesthetic to our people, like anesthetizing us as far as this is like pacifying us, and we're going to keep you from rebelling. So we're going to give you these outlets here. Is that what you would say? No. This was actually programmatic to really. Like,
no, I don't think
structure the society.
I think that the reason, of course, was pacification. I mean, I think that's the reason they came with the programs, not out of good intent, but at least they came with something.
I see what you're saying.
You know,
right.
They don't come with nothing now.
Okay.
We don't believe in really doing what we did then. You know, we get condemned if somebody throws a rock. They killed your mother and beat her to death in front of you. Yeah. You know, and you're supposed to just. You know, work through the system, knowing there ain't nothing justice gonna come from it. Right. But if somebody in the crowd throws a rock, we condemn them more than the other people condemn them. Right. So I'm saying, in the '60s, it wasn't like that. Not just when Dr. King got killed, but throughout the '60s. One of the worst ones jumped off in Los Angeles in '64. That Watts riot.
Right.
Don't get them mad in Los Angeles. Don't get that one out there upset because they'll show you something in L.A. now. They've done it a couple of times. Right. And they shocked the nation, you know. Yeah. But it was in response in '64 to police beating up somebody. Right. And it's the same thing with the Rodney King thing. It's the same thing now with the Mike Brown. It's the same thing time after time. But I'm saying, at least in the '60s, people don't want to hear this today, I'm sure. They don't think what I'm saying is right, I'm sure. But people fought back to a degree, physically. Right. And they got a response from the government with resources and programs. Right. It didn't last, but at least they were there. Now they don't do anything. Right. More jail time, more harsh treatment, more demeaning, more putting us in a box, in my estimation. Yeah, so, you know.
Indeed. So now, you know, you're of age, you're 12, coming into consciousness. Now you're capturing this, you know, in your later years of life.
Right.
And you come up with this book, Coming Clean.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So let's talk about. You talked about the inspiration you received, the encouragement you received. So just give us the synopsis of the whole book. And you kind of did that before, but just kind of, you know, just present us the writing process. You know, what was the first thought that you had? Like, I'm gonna write a book.
Okay.
You know, how does this come about?
Okay, I was trying to remember now. I was dealing with some emotional issues in my life at the time, real personal. I won't go into what they were about, but I was talking to a friend of mine, a sister named Andrea Woodward. She's a psychologist, I think, with the school system. She had been. And she's also in some spiritual stuff. And she told me a prayer to pray. And I can't remember what it was. You know, getting older, my memory ain't as good. She told me something to do. And I did it. And then the idea came to me, well, I'm going to write about it. You know, that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my healing process to get through this real personal thing that I hadn't come to terms with. You know, so I said I'm going to write about it. She gave me the inspiration and the idea. She didn't say write a book, but that's what came out of the prayer.
Right.
And I forget what the prayer was, but it was very particular, specific. And the idea to write the book came out of that. And so I had written about an incident that happened with me and a friend of mine a few years before. I didn't ever intend on making it into a book. But the police, we broke into some place we shouldn't have done, you know, young people, you know, whatever. And we got caught, and the police put dogs on us, German Shepherds.
Wow.
About 1 o'clock in the morning.
And you're a teenager?
Yeah, I was 16. Right before my 17th birthday. It was in August, I think, before my 17th birthday. It was in the middle of the night. I'm screaming and hollering. I'm in a big room, and me and the dog and the police, he puts a pistol on the floor, because I was on the floor, not making it up. Police put a pistol on the floor. I didn't see him do it, but I'm on the floor, and this dog's on me. I look up and I see a pistol. I got the sense enough not to grab it, you know, or not enough courage, however you want to interpret it. I didn't grab it. I jumped away from it up off the floor. Which in later years, it helped me understand how some of these things unfold, you know. So anyway, they did that to us. And so I had written about that experience a few years before. Just had it someplace, you know, something I just made so I started the book with that incident. And I wrote, and I ended it with that incident. Because I went back to age 12, and I started the book by talking about that incident. Then I'm up there in the juvenile detention on the 7th floor of the Jackson County Courthouse. They had cells for juveniles. And I'm in there, and I say I'm thinking about all the stuff that led up from the past to this point. So I went back to around 12 when Dr. King got murdered, because that's when I'm coming into some sense of consciousness. not the black consciousness, but a consciousness that's
awareness
about my environment and about things.
Right.
And, I was going to Martin Luther King, and my older brother, he was dating somebody in the neighborhood down there, and, I'm running around trying to follow him and being in that older set, and we hanging out, we on the street, really, as teenagers, 13, 14, he may have been 16 or 17, and the stuff that comes with that, people pulling pistols on you, and shooting at you, and those kind of incidences, and conflict between groups,
right.
So I'm writing about those things, and people getting killed, a friend of mine, a friend of a lot of people, he just wasn't my friend, got killed on 39th Indiana, that we still struggle with sometimes. That's the thing about all this killing. It affects a lot of people. It affects the family for sure, but it affects the friends. It affects the schoolmates, and it doesn't just disappear because it was last year. You carry this stuff with you throughout the rest of your life.
Right.
It's a difficult thing. It's a hurtful thing.
Yeah, it creates a vacuum.
Yes. Yeah. It's a real struggle. And then you're young, and then we doing drugs, and more than they do now, because now they got synthesized down to crack, and a couple other diabolical things. But in the 60s, it was the free love hippie era, and they had it here in Kansas City, and we were in that environment too, and they had everything. And we was doing as much of it as we could. Too young to be doing it, but
right. It was available.
Yeah, and it's here, and that's what when you're misguided and you're not listening, that's what happens, and a lot of us pay the price for it with our life. Some of us that was in that environment. I'm a lucky one or a blessed one or something. I feel like I am really.
Right.
Because it didn't have to. I don't have a lot, but I don't have to have my mind. That could have been gone, and I didn't have to go to prison like a lot of people did. And spent most of their youthful years behind bars. Right. I didn't do that, but a lot of them around me, that's what they did, and they were on a straight path going there. They were doing the kind of stuff that leads straight to prison.
Right.
But I had enough sense, even as a teenager, to see that didn't make sense. Some of the stuff that people in my environment were doing, I did what I did, but I had a real limit on how far I would go and what I would do.
Yeah.
Thank God.
No doubt.
So, but I write about that from 12 to 16, and I thought I was going to write beyond that, but I had gotten over 300 pages. I didn't know if I could write 100 pages. When I started, I challenged myself. I want to write 100 pages, to be able to call it a book, And I got to 100 pages, and I said 150 to myself. Then I said I want to write 200. I'm going to stop it at 250. But every time I would get to a certain point, I still hadn't said everything that I wanted to say. And so when I got to about 300 pages, I said, well, I'm just going to get to a certain point. Not a certain page count, but I'm going to just stop it at a certain point.
Right.
But I thought I was going to go further in my life, and I was going to come back and write a second book. But I said, if I write a second book, I got to include my children's mothers. And I have to be honest about it, not demeaning and talking about nobody. And I sure come short of the glory of God. And I was the most trouble in a relationship, but neither one of them was perfect. And I said I don't want to go there, so I didn't write a second addition to that book, because if I can't be honest, I heard him on the radio on the talk show one day in around 1997 talking about writing. They say, well, how can the person was asking the question, if I write about my family, I say this, say that, it hurts feelings, and the person that's the writer said, well, if you can't be honest, don't be a writer. You have to be honest. If you're not going to be honest about it, then no sense in writing it. You're going to hurt somebody. It's going to cause some, and I did too, I'm sure, with this book. I didn't do it intentionally.
Right.
But everybody doesn't agree with my viewpoint. They know who I'm talking about, the people in the book. Some of them know, some of them don't know. But it wasn't an attack on anybody, but, people think differently about you when you write about them.
Right.
They don't quite know how to get their mind around that sometimes.
Right. So how was that book received, Coming Clean? How did your audience receive that?
It was pretty well received. I'm not the best business person, but it was pretty well received because a lot of people know me. I know a lot of people, and they know it was real and it was about them. So everybody that in my environment wanted to get a copy. And I sold about, over the years, I still got some. I sold about maybe 800 copies, so 800 or 900 maybe. Okay. Yeah, but just me selling them face to face for the most part. I didn't have an ad campaign or sophisticated.
I've seen it in Barnes and Noble. I've seen it in other bookstores as well. Did you actually?
I got it in Barnes and Noble. Yeah. And I did a few book signings. I went to Barnes and Noble, did a book signing. I think it's Barnes and Noble. I went to St. Louis, did a couple book signings. Went to at Las Vegas, did a book signing.
Okay.
But it's not hard to set up. You can set it up yourself.
Right.
So I would, I forget how I did it so long ago. I don't know if I wrote him a letter or called him. I probably did about a letter and then follow-up call, send him a copy of the book, and wanted to come in and do an author deal, and I did that. You know, that can be a lonely experience. But I like talking to people, and it was fun.
Yeah.
You know, I always sold some and had some people there, you know, that were interested. And, so I sold about 800 copies.
Awesome.
Yeah. But it was just over those years, to 71.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this eventually leads to you starting your travels. When is the first time that you left the country, and what inspired you to want to leave the country?
Okay. I'm thinking. I think the first time, actually, I went to Mexico.
Okay.
I think it was like around 93, somewhere around that time.
Okay.
92, maybe somewhere in the early 90s. I went to Mexico. I went to Tijuana. I was trying to go to Africa. I wanted to go to Africa. And I was trying to get the money together, you know, as much as I could get. And I came short. I didn't get as much as I thought I needed. I didn't know anything about Africa, but I wanted to go. Didn't have anybody there, no contacts, wasn't going in the group. I wanted enough money to go and stay and go from country to country, if necessary, by myself and stay as long as I could. That was my intent. But I came up short on the money. I was laid off from the Internal Revenue, so it was in the early 90s. And I said, well, hell, I'm going to go to Mexico. So I went to Tijuana. I stayed down there, I guess 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. I went to San Diego first, stayed there for a week, then I went into Mexico. And I would catch the train in San Diego to San Ysidro, whatever it's called. It's right at the border, Tijuana. And then I would walk over the border, walk across that highway. It's the busiest border crossing in the world. Tijuana to San Diego is the busiest number of cars in the world.
Wow.
And they got police with dogs at this time, you know, walking in between them cars. It's about 20 or 30 lanes across.
Wow.
Yeah. And when you walk in, you can go in by bus. Greyhound take you in. You go in by car, you know, however, go through customs and all that. But I just go through customs and walk over that highway. And it was a metal gate that enclosed the walkway, like prison. And then when you get when it really was like going to prison. When you get to Mexico, come down that flight of stairs on the Tijuana side of the border, it was a turnstile that had fencing and gate all up around it. It's like you're going into prison. It's not prison,
right,
you know, at all. But
it puts you in mind.
Yeah, it puts you in mind of that. So I go in there, didn't know nobody. You know, they got taxis right there at the border. They got people sitting on the ground, women with their babies tied around them. The Africans tie the baby the same way the Mexicans do, with a big cloth, and they tie them around their back. They don't have a carrier. So, and they sitting on the ground, you know, begging for money, and you see that. And so I just walked I may have called a taxi one time. He asked if I wanted marijuana. I ain't crazy enough to go to a foreign country looking for no drugs. I don't smoke none anyway, you know.
Right.
I don't want no marijuana. I don't want no drugs. I want to go where I'm going.
Right.
So they dropped me up on Avenue Revolution. If you go to the left, it was the tourist section, all kind of shops, and they had clubs and drinking spots. To the right was the locals, which I found out about that later. Well, I stayed there 2 or 3 weeks. Then I came back to the U.S. That was the first time. Yeah.
So was it a positive experience in Tijuana for you?
It was positive. I rented a room from a lady who didn't speak English. I didn't speak no Spanish. But we were able to negotiate, you know. So I rented a room, paid it for a month or 2 weeks. So I forgot what it was. And they got cold at night, like Southern California. It was positive. I had a good time. It let me know this. There's a whole other world outside of the U.S. And even though Tijuana is right across the street, literally, from San Diego, it's a world apart. Wow. The culture is totally different. The people are different. And the vibe is different. The movement is different. It was the first time I really realized there's a whole nother world out here. You know, everybody ain't the U.S. They're not trying to mimic the U.S. They got their own custom traditions, look, style, music, beat, everything. As close as it is, it's a world away. Right. That was my impression of Tijuana.
Did you ever experience any African presence in Tijuana? Was there any African presence down there?
I'm going to tell you, the only one I remember, brother. The only one I remember, I went to a strip joint in Tijuana on Avenue Revolution. So I go up in here one night, and I see this fine sister. You know, I think she was dancing. In fact, she wasn't dancing when I saw her, but I think she was dancing, working in there. And I just know she's from New Jersey or New York or Boston or something. Right. And I motioned to her, call her over there, sat her down there for a minute, got to talking, and she's Mexican. Wow. She's darker than us, me and you. She's dark, you know, beautiful, sexy, pretty body and everything. And she told me she was from Acapulco. Wow. A lot of blacks down in Acapulco. I didn't never know that. Wow. She's the only one. I don't know if I saw any black Americans. I probably did, but it's been so long. Right. I just remember her. fine sister. And she was Mexican. I just didn't know.
Right.
And this is what it did to me, too. This is another effect it had on me.
Okay.
I never was attracted to Hispanic women, Mexican women. Never saw a lot of them. In Kansas City, it wasn't that many when I was growing up. Still ain't like some places, I'll say. But being in Mexico, in Tijuana, the streets are full of them. Mm-hmm. And I learned, and I appreciate the beauty in the Mexican women when I was around a lot of them. Mm-hmm. I didn't appreciate it until I went to Tijuana. Mm-hmm. And I saw them all over the place, and they remind me of sisters. Mm-hmm. The way they dress and the way their bodies built. Yeah, they're the physical appearance. They got a body kind of built like sisters to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dress kind of provocative like that, at that time. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from Mexico, your next international travel would be?
Believe it or not, the Philippines.
Okay.
I went to the Philippines in 1995, and all this on my dime. I ain't going with the military and anybody sending me. I just figured out a way to go. I was in Minnesota before I went to Mexico, working with a guy. We selling cable TV. Working with a guy from Chicago who was a drummer. He's a musician. Been on the Johnny Carson show, backing up different groups and stuff. He's traveled around the world, and he didn't have a name independent, but he had a talent that allowed him to be with people that did have names, Right. So he was talking about them Filipino women. Oh, man. He had a wife over there. He said he going to go get her. So he's talking about that, which got my attention. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going to the Philippines looking. To take a look-see for myself. I had some context before I got there. So I stayed there for 11 days. Okay. And it's the hottest, most humid place I'd ever. I was in a place called Cebu City. Okay. It's the capital. What's the capital of the Philippines? The big city. Begin with an M. Managua? No, that's
not Manila.
Manila. Yeah, Manila, the capital, big city. But Cebu City is the second largest city. Okay. But it's water everywhere. When you fly into the Philippines, it looks like nowhere to land. There's so much water. Wow. So it's real humid and it's hot. And I understood when I saw Michael Jackson years later with that mask over his face. Because in the Philippines, fires burning everywhere in 1995. Around the roadside, people were using the wood to cook, and more so than Africa, believe it or not. I saw more fires burning for cooking in the Philippines than I've ever seen in Africa. So the smoke is there, along with the humidity, and it kind of makes it hard on your breathing, Yeah.
So Philippines experience?
To be honest, and I had to be honest, I didn't like it too much. I liked the little sister that I met over there, and but I felt that negative vibe, the racial thing there.
Really?
Oh man, yeah. I thought I was gonna kill somebody before I leave.
Right.
Because they be making comments. I'm with this little chick, young lady, and moving around, and the guys be sitting back over there. Maybe they're working or sitting on the curtain. They be saying disparaging things. I didn't understand it, but I know it wasn't a good thing they were saying.
The tone and everything.
Yeah. I didn't like it at all. In fact, bad vibe in the Philippines for me. Now other people say differently. I don't know if it was me, my spirit that they was feeding on, or but I'm taking it as a racial insult. I saw one African there, and he was an African, Nigerian, I think, and he was in a grocery store, and I embraced him. I said, "Brother, it's good to see you," and I hugged him, Right. And he had a Filipino wife. He lived. I said, "Man, how do you tolerate it? How do you, And he just, had been there long enough, and learn how to deal with it, and without coming apart from it,
Right.
That was my experience, but I had other people say that they didn't experience that. But for me, I didn't want too much to do with Asia after that. Yeah.
And I know you get to Asia again eventually in your life, but I want to get down to your African experience.
Okay.
You talked about the coast, your coast experience in the book that you said. Have you written that book?
My coast, you said? You
said you came back to the door of no return. Your first.
That's I've written that book. Yeah, it's not in print, but I have written it. It's gonna be in print soon.
Okay, so
Cape Coast. Yeah.
You were in Senegal.
No, I'm in Ghana.
You were in Ghana.
Ghana, yeah.
Okay, so that's the first experience in foot touchdown in Africa.
Yes.
From Ghana.
Yes.
So talk to us about Ghana. What's Ghana like?
Okay.
Your experiences there.
Okay. I went there in 2003. I started wanting to go in 1993 to Africa. It took me 10 years. Mm-hmm. I went there. My brother died in January, my oldest brother, and I'm in shock, I'm sure. I didn't really get a chance to grieve. That's a whole nother story. Right. So I was able to get the money together, and I had time on my hands, so I started making plans to go around April, I think. And I didn't know anything about it. I knew Minister Farrakhan had been there and had Savior's Day, which is one of the reasons I went to Ghana. Mm-hmm. And I knew W.B. Du Bois had went there and died the last few years of his life. That's another reason I went. Mm-hmm. And I knew something about Kwame Nkrumah. And I respect him as a Pan-Africanist and a thinker and as a liberator. And then they speak English. Mm-hmm. Them the four reasons I go. People ask me that, so I always say that.
Right.
So when I started making my preparations and looking online or however I was getting information, I think I was online at that time, barely, and they talked about something called Panafest. I never heard of it. It's a cultural and arts festival that happens every other year on the odd year, so it won't be in next year in 2018, it'll be in 2019. So I just so happened to go at the right time, doing Panafest. I get to the JFK in New York, and Cornel West is coming through the airport, you know, and then Akbar Muhammad comes, and Julia Malveaux comes, and oh man, it's a buzz created, you know, and we all going on the same flight, you know, which made it special from the very beginning. From the time I got to JFK, even before I got there for real, it was a special spiritual experience, good experience. I got to Ghana, never been there, didn't know nobody, made the reservation online with a guest house. They came pick me up at the airport, had a sign. Wow. I came out the airport, took a while to get to the airport, getting through the airport, customs and all that. When I finally got all my bags, and brother, I'm loaded down, because I didn't know how long I was going to stay. I may stay for a year, I may stay forever, you know, that's how I went thinking like that, you know. They gave me a 5-year visa. Wow. You know, multi-entry. You know, you got to go and come supposedly, but it's good for 5 years. Wow. And so I get through customs. I come through the airport with all my luggage. I had 2 big suitcases. At that time, they would let you bring 70 pounds on the carry-on. Now it's only 50 pounds international. Now then 70. I probably had 2 70-pound bags in the carry-on. I'm coming home to state. So I get to the airport, and the guys out there with my Sam Monterey, you know, and man, it was a sea of black people. I mean, black people, not looking like you and me. It's a few Africans, Ghanaians, and your color, man. You know, we a little light-skinned, but they mainly black people and darker hues, you know, and it's a sea of. And they all behind this barricade. I really stood out that event. I always stand out to this day, for real. So it's a sea of black. They got my name, so... But the guy was so nice, Emmanuel, I think was his name. So he gets me in. They right there, when you come through the airport, it's guys trying to get you a taxi and want to help you and carry your bags and everything. They on the hustle there, and they're trying to get what they can get, and I understand it. I gave a lady from the Red Cross, Ghana Red Cross, for $1 or $2 or whatever, you know, and that was it. And then the guy that came to pick me up, he organized the guys to get my bags and took it to the car. And they stayed in a place called Atomic Junction, Hot Show. Atomic Junction. I know that area well now. I didn't know it at the time. Thought it was further away from the city than it was, but just the traffic is so bad.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, my God. It's a nightmare. We don't know traffic here. Wow. To this day, traffic is horrible in Ghana, in Accra, in the capital. Right. Partly because of the less developed road networks. Right. The road networks were more extensive and developed. It wouldn't be as bad. But it's a lot of people there. You know, it's a big population. So they take me to the house, and they tell me, no, Brother Akbar on the plane, we was me and another guy standing up talking. Akbar come up and he said tonight, it was on Sunday.
Naeem Akbar is who you're referring to.
No, Akbar Muhammad. Akbar, Minister Farrakhan's man, international representative Akbar Muhammad, yeah. Because Akbar was living at the time. He lived there 15 years. You know, he got a wife out of there now, in fact. But Akbar said they're having an event at the Boys Learning Center tonight. It's on Sunday. And he said, Al Sharpton was there too. He said Al Sharpton is going to make a speech. Liberia's civil war was going still, and they were trying to wind it up. And Al Sharpton was running for president, and he was wanting to go to Liberia to help with the peace process. We got a right to have a voice in it too. That's his point of view, you know. So anyway, Akbar invited. So anyway, I tell the guys from Ghana, I'm staying at the guest house, about W.B. Du Bois Center. Do you know where it's at? They say, yeah, sure. We go every Sunday. There's a brother out of L.A., Malana, out of L.A., been living there over 40 years. He was having educational seminars every Sunday.
Is that Karinga?
No, not Malana Karinga, another Malana. Okay. Yeah, he been in Africa so long, you wouldn't know him probably unless he was there, but he's from L.A., been living there maybe 45 years, you know, his name Malana too. Okay. And he's having these educational things on at Du Bois. They turned Du Bois' house into a cultural center. Wow. So a lot of groups come and go. They got an African American Association in Ghana that meets there once a month. Caribbean Association meets once a month. You can rent out different places. Now they got a guest house there you can live in. They got a diasporian forum that's a part of it now, a functional, institutional place. But at that time, so we went there that night, and these guys knew about it. You know, they were well aware. So we go there that night. Man, it was so special. This is the first night in Africa. I took a nap. They woke me up. We stopped and got something to eat. Eating with my hands for the first time, banku and okra stew. I think it was the first thing I ate. Okay. And the food, brother, is delicious. Oh, man. Yeah. The food is good. Yeah. You eat with your hands certain things. Right. You know, the banku and kenke is made out of corn dough, and it's pliable.
It's a bread. Type of a bread?
It's doughy. It's more doughy than bread. Okay. And it's round ball like this, like your fist, about that size, and they wrap
almost like a dumpling, almost.
Yeah. It's thick and And now the kenke is not as a little different texture, but it's similar. Mm-hmm. And you just break off pieces of this and you dip it into the food. And it's hard to, it's a messy operation. Right. But that's how people eat.
Right. It is on fire. Yeah.
That's how people eat. Doctors, dentists, everybody. That's how we eat. Right. Traditional food with your hands,
Right.
So I'm learning that process. But the food was good. Then we go to the Du Bois Center, and Akbar spoke a little bit, introduced people, master ceremonies. Al Sharpton spoke. And it was just wonderful, brother. From the time I touched down, I just fell in love with the spirit. And in Panafest. Panafest is in Cape Coast. Cape Coast is where it is. In Ghana. Cape Coast is maybe, 60, 70 miles from Accra, down the coast. And it was the original capital. The British moved the capital to Accra in the 1880s, I think. But Cape Coast had been the original. And they got this slave dungeon there that was built, I think, by the... The Portuguese built one in Elmina, which is about 7 miles from Cape Coast. They're two big monoliths. They're about 3 or 4 stories tall, stone. And Cape Coast been there since the 1600s. Elmina been there since 14...
They're like fortresses or something?
Like a fortress, but they're slave dungeons. They're fortresses. Yeah, they're right on the Atlantic Ocean, but they're slave dungeons. And most of the activities for Cape Coast revolve around Cape Coast. They call it Cape Coast Castle. But there's a brother out in New York who's a Hebrew Israelite. He goes by the name of Rabbi Kohen. And Rabbi Kohen been there about 30 years now, I guess. And he's one of the conveners of Panafest. He's one of the integral people who organize it every year, very involved in it. And Kohen said in one of them public events that we attended that they call it Cape Coast Castle. But we don't call it a castle. We call it a dungeon. Because there was no nobility here. There was no honor here. There was no decency here. There was nothing good here for our ancestors that was brought through these places. So we don't say castle. We call it a dungeon. And that's what I say too, Cape Coast Dungeon. But it's a powerful thing, brother. I tell people it's worth the price of the ticket to go to Ghana to walk through these places and to experience them, to walk through them. It has different effects on different people. There's a room in the dungeon where there's an altar and there's a priest. This is doing the Panafest thing, but it's there every day. And the priest pours libations at the altar and says prayers for the ancestors and the African gods. He's not a Christian, he's not a Hebrew, he's not a Muslim. He's a traditional African priest. Right. Pouring libations and doing it in the tradition of the African spiritual sense. And they have wreaths, like you lay on the gravesite. Right. And they said the reason these wreaths are here because some Black American school children came here, and when they came down in these dungeons, they just fell out crying. It just hit them real deep. And they didn't know what to do or what they could do. But they felt like they had to do something. So it really touched them real deep emotionally. So they left there, and they went and got these wreaths. And they're the ones that started this tradition. They brought the wreath back for the spirit of the ancestors. Little children did that, Wow. So that's part of the whole Panafest experience. They had another part where you walk down this road from a place called London Bridge area to the castle at nighttime with candles burning. Everybody that wants to participate can. And it's retracing the steps of our ancestors as they were brought down here and brought into these dungeons. And then we went through, we experienced it as a group because it's doing Panafest, a lot of these things. And we went through the door of no return. It's just a door, and the ocean used to rise higher and the ships were closer. So we come up out of these dungeons, these lower areas, and we go. They said, now this is the door of no return. They call it that, but they wasn't calling it that at the time. That's something that recently we started saying that. They said they call it door of no return because when our ancestors left through this portal, they never saw home again. That's the end of it. They either was died in the ocean or died on this ship. The ones that survived the 2-month voyage, the 6-week voyage, some of them died on the plantation, some of them survived, so we here. But they call it door of no return. And brother, it's a solemn experience. Ain't nobody doing much talking. We like to talk, but doing this is real quiet. people with their own thoughts, they with their own spirit. So they stand out on this ledge overlooking the ocean. And, we do that for a few minutes, and then he said, okay, now we're going to come back through. He said, we're going to complete the journey. He said, because they didn't think we'd ever come back, but you all are testament and proof, that you're back.
Right.
And your ancestors are happy. And the ancestors are happy, brother. I believe that, and we all believe that when we go home.
Right.
The ancestors are still there, and the spirit of them is there. It's a powerful place, Cape Coast. And around them dungeons, I get a solemn spirit every time I'm around them. I just get in a whole different kind of place,
Right.
Because so much death and suffering over 200 or 300 or 400 years took place in these places, Yeah. And it's a moving, it's something to see and something to witness and it's something to be a part of. Then they had plays, and then they're so welcoming to Black Americans particularly.
See, that's the misconception I wanted you to address.
Oh yeah. I still hear people say that they don't like us over there. That's not true, And that's what hooked me on going to Ghana. Panafest is a special time. It's a good time to go. Good and
African Fest is what it's about?
Yeah. So blacks are there from the Caribbean nations. They're there from Barbados and Jamaica and Haiti and everywhere. They're there from America. They're there from Europe. They're there from Suriname. They're from Brazil. It's black people and whites there too, for real. Some of them are there, But it ain't just Black Americans. But they make a special effort when I went, to welcome the Black American contingent. Wow. They really make a special effort to make you feel and know that you're at home. And they come and sit you right down front, When there's stuff going on, when you come in, in the black church, if the white folks come doing political seeds, they always take they sit them right on the front row.
Right.
So that's the way they do us in Africa. And I hope they don't look at it like that, the local people. I hope they don't resent it. But it just it's healing for us. Yeah. Because we haven't been accepted in this culture, in this nation, this environment. Right. And then to go home and to be welcomed so openly and with so much love. No, it's not. We got it wrong here. The ones who don't know and haven't been. Maybe some of them that don't like us. A lot of us here don't like them,
Right.
But that's not what you get for the most part. Mainly you get, especially during Panafest, they're more conscious of it. And even every day on the street. They know you from America, you're a black man. They welcome you. They want to know about you. They want to. It ain't it's not nothing negative at all.
Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So going home to Africa, what has that done for you in terms of your consciousness, in terms of your spiritual awareness in life? Just your overall perspectives. How has going to Africa impacted your life?
Well, one way it lets me know that I have another option in life. I ain't stuck in America. I don't have to tolerate this system. I don't have to be here. Just like Italians can go to Italy, and the English can go to England, and the Spanish can go to Spain, and the Mexicans can go back to Mexico, and the Nicaraguans, when they get some money, they can go back to Nicaragua and build them a big house and live good. And the other people can come here and get money out of this culture and environment and economy. They got some place they can go back to. Or if the thing gets too bad here, if the racism or the violence breaks out, or they get sick of it, they have somewhere to go. Most black Americans back us to the wall, and they don't feel like they have anywhere they can go. I know I have somewhere I can go. I can go home, because Africa is home. Yeah. Even though the people there think I'm a white man. That's the truth, too.
Really?
Yeah, they look at me and they say, Bruni. Bruni means white man.
Really? It
ain't like using the N-word, right. But it's the way they see it. They don't understand it. A lot of them most of them never left the continent, and I'm so light to them, I look like a white man to them, Wow. And then we come in the white man's clothes and his language and his culture. We come in his culture. We think we black, but we got the white culture.
Wow.
We got it.
Westernized.
We are. Even the black among us. We are.
Wow.
We don't see if you can speak the language. That's what connects people. It's language. I can't speak Ewe. I can't speak Ashanti or Fanti or Kwapium or Hausa or Wolof or none of them traditional African languages. And if I could, they would identify with me as an African. It's the language that connects you. And also it's the spiritual system. We're Christians here. Yeah. We're Muslims, we're Hebrew. But they got other spiritual systems in Africa. Right. Theirs go back before these here. And they go to the shrine. They go to their shrine when the going gets tough. And we don't know nothing about that. Most of us don't,
Right.
So, we're disconnected in many ways. Right. We really are. We've been here for 400 years and we're disconnected. We can still claim Africa as home because our ancestors came from there and it is home. But it's not like they just going to openly embrace you as their brother. They don't see color as brotherhood. Brotherhood is tribe. It's clan. It's language. It's culture. It's not based on color, because in Africa, everybody black.
Right.
Black don't mean nothing in Africa. Everybody black.
Right,
You know.
Right.
But we've been forced into this black identity and connectiveness here out of denial and rejection. But in Africa, everybody black, so it's deeper than the brotherhood goes deeper than that. But what else? Oh, but brother, it's not all good. The brother in St. Louis with the Nation of Islam died when I was over there this last time. He was 82 years old. And the last time I saw him, he said, "Brother, tell it all when you tell it." Brother Emmanuel, he lived over about 15 years. Had a house up in the mountains, and I got some land across from him. I don't have anything on it, but I got some acre of land. Emmanuel built him a house. But Emmanuel had become a little, if not discouraged. See, the rose-tinted glasses come out. Even if you're Pan-African, it's super with the black thing. If you haven't been, you have to go. And then after you stay long enough and you see it clearly, it's not as bad as people believe it is, but it's not as good as some other people believe it is. So I've come to some conclusions, having traveled there and other places. We got some serious issues that black people do.
Internationally.
Yes. Internationally, brother. Black Americans and Africans have some serious cultural issues that are, in my opinion, that's as much of a hindrance to us, to our progress, as outside pressure from other groups.
Colonialism is the cause, would you say?
I don't know if it's colonialism or not, because I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know if it's colonialism. But I'll tell you this now. I'm going to tell you one thing that I just figured out. It takes a while for things to come clear. And that don't mean you're right. But I'm saying, from my understanding, my perspective, the thing I figured out this last time, there ain't no trust in Africa.
Really?
Ain't no trust among Africans. It's worse than it is among us in black America. Ain't no trust in the society. And that's probably a direct result of Africans preying on each other for 300 years with the slave thing. It's true. Wasn't this white man running into the continent? And I'm not blaming them, brother. This is the mistake black Americans make. We think it was some of us that don't know nothing. We think it was them. They blame the Africans for selling our ancestors. No, it wasn't them. It was us. It wasn't no them. It was us selling us for 300 years. It wasn't no Negro from Chicago. You didn't exist then. It was your ancestors in Africa, and you were a part of that. And some of mine could have been responsible for some of yours being here. Some of yours could be responsible if you go back far enough. When I say yours, because some of the chiefs mainly were the ones involved, but they had people with them working, and it was pressures put on them with guns and outside forces, but still, we participated in that.
Yes, we did.
We were in fear for 300 years of each other in Africa, getting snatched up in the middle of the night. And it wasn't the white men coming in doing the snatching most of the time. They did some of it along the coastline and trickery and stuff. But mainly it was African people in the interior that was doing the work. So the lack of trust and faith in each other there is deep-seated, brother, in Africa. And some of this stuff is in us before we got to America. Some of these dysfunctions and these, it's a mess. We got some good stuff to work with, but we got some things we need to come to terms with, I think, as a people and be honest about. See, I had a conversation with a banker. I don't want to go too far, but I had a banker, my banker, in fact, manager of the branch. We sitting there talking, this is in 2012. I'm telling you about Boko Haram, what I just read on the internet. Seems to make good sense that they may be supported by CIA, somebody in the background, the way they developed and the speed that they developed and the technical stuff, they're making a good case. You know what he told me? He said, brother, even if that's true, they don't have to do what they're doing. He said, I've been, and so I thought about it. It's the same with us. Yeah, we've got forces working against us here. And yeah, they put the drugs and the guns here.
But don't pick it
up.
But
we don't have to behave like this. But we do. Something in us. Yeah. Yes, it is. There's something in us that supersedes that white man. That Boko Haram, this is what the brother told me too. I'm not trying, I don't want to put, well, maybe I won't say that. Because I want people to go. And, and the food is good, the people are good. It's good and bad everywhere you go. It's safer there than it is here. I want to get that out.
That's powerful.
It's safer in Accra, Ghana, 5 million people, than it is in Kansas City. What they have on us, the huge advantage is in Ghana, they don't like to fight. They tell you, we don't fight. And I've seen it, brother. You can be on the street, at the beach, or anywhere. and people get into a dispute, and they very emotional and boisterous,
Right.
They get to arguing, but as soon as the argument breaks out and it gets heated, strangers come up. You don't have to know nobody. Strangers come up, no, brother, you calm down, listen to it. They'll pull, and I've seen it happen. People I'm with get involved in stuff like this sometimes with strangers. They separate the combatants before they get to combat, and they talk sense into them. And they really don't want to throw no blows anyway. It's rare to see somebody swing.
Right.
Every now and then somebody will, and the one that hit him is almost as afraid as the one that got hit.
Eyes closed.
So they don't fight.
Yeah.
They don't curse. They don't speak the bad language. They're not disrespectful to elders and children. Some of us that don't know nothing about nothing, we think Africa's savage, Africa's jungle, Africa's backward, Africa. They more civilized than we are in many respects, in my opinion.
They're about peace.
Yeah, and they're about respect, brother. You don't curse and talk foul language around 3 and 4 year olds, and we do it every day. We don't even think about it, even our own children.
Right.
We're cursing and the women talking bad to their own sons and daughters, and people see this in us from out. They come over here from all over the world, and they look at us the way we behave, and they don't want nothing to do with this, brother.
Right.
Even the ones that come from war-torn countries, before the war started, they were civilized. They wasn't acting like this, barbarians and heathens.
Right.
But they see the way black Americans act, not all of us, but too many of us. And then the elders ain't got no control over the young people in our communities. They don't come from societies like that.
Right.
So Ghana's safe. You can go there and walk the streets at night by yourself. Women was on the plane the first time I went, a sister out of New York named Julie, 19 years old, by herself. Stayed about a month or so. I met 3 sisters actually. 2 the first time, then the third one came from Ethiopia. And they had been foreign exchange students. They come back every year. They just travel around the country, with the locals, sometimes by themselves, staying with people, staying in hotels, just enjoying it.
Right.
It's paradise for a lot of us to go over there.
That's deep.
Yeah, the brothers that go over there and stay, bro, it's paradise.
they
would never come back here.
Right.
Yeah, most of them are older. They retired, they got an income, but I know black folks been over there, man. They come back to visit. One brother from New York, he got, unfortunately, he was hit by a car in 07 and killed, but he had been there about 25 years, and he never came back to the U.S. He left here and he never came back. For what? That's what he feels like.
Right. Ain't nothing there for me here.
Look, bro, they got homes at the beach, houses, wonderful, beautiful, acre of land, coconut, pineapple trees, banana trees. You don't have no fear of the police. Wow. You don't have the racism. You don't have people riding by shooting. You don't have the loud cussing and fussing and fighting. You leave all this stuff in America. You don't know how much stress is on you until you get someplace where there ain't no stress. Yeah. Brother told me, Willie from D.C., he worked on grocery stores and laundromats, businessman, did well, not bragging about it, but you can tell this guy is who he says he is, Got him a young wife, got a 10-year-old daughter over there. He's about 78 now. He said, Africa added 10 years to my life. And he wasn't no Pan-Africanist. He just went to Africa on a fluke, really, with a group of people, to Senegal or somewhere, and the spirit captures you. Yeah, even white folks come there, and they have the same feeling that we do. A lot of them,
Like, I'm home.
They don't come back and tell us.
No, I understand.
But they probably speak among each other.
Yeah.
They just dog it and talk down to us, but I've seen them over there, and they enjoy it just like we do. It's amazing. Brother, they got beaches, they got casinos. If you like to gamble, I don't, but they're there. They got hotels and restaurants and nightclubs.
It's contemporary.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And peaceful. That's the thing.
That's the most important, right? Yeah.
You don't feel like when and brother, they got more. The places there got a lot more pizzazz and character than they do here.
Wow. Here
you just in a box. You in a club. They got a front door. That's what I felt when I came back one day. It's just a box, even with the lights and stuff going. But there, because it's the tropics, everything is outside. Even when you're inside, there's no panes in the windows, open spaces, so you feel like you're outside.
Wow.
And it's just, they got the music, they got the food,
It's
they got the vibe, man. I'm telling you, it's nice.
That's awesome. So we're gonna come back around to Asia now, because I know Ghana. You've been to other countries in the continent, though, right?
Yes, recently.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to Ethiopia last year.
Okay.
It was the first time. I hadn't been anywhere other than Ghana until 2016.
Okay.
I went to Ethiopia. I stayed for a month. Yeah.
And you had pictures. Was those pictures of the pyramids or the statues? Was that in Egypt or was that in Ethiopia?
No, that's in Thailand.
Really?
Wait, the one with Egypt is in Thailand.
Oh, so
Yeah,
Thailand, I know is that your most recent travel?
That's the most recent, yeah.
So just get into that.
Thailand,
Yes,
okay.
I know you had initial experience in Asia. You said you wasn't feeling.
Right.
Now let's talk about your second experience.
Okay, I went there. I had to be honest. All the wild reports I heard, the women. That's one reason I went. I got a partner. I got a partner in Minnesota. When I was in Ghana last year, he went to Thailand. He's telling me all this stuff. I was in Ethiopia in 2016 for a month, and the guy stayed at the guest house with Ethiopia. He was telling me about Thailand. He's the first. He's the first person I heard. So I was hesitant because of that Philippine experience, Right. But I started doing some research, looking online, and I'm telling you, one thing that excites me is the cost of living. It's so cheap in these places. And I saw hotels in Thailand cheaper than in Ghana, which really surprised me. Nice places. And my partner listened to him. I said, I'm going to go, because I'm looking. I don't know if I want to stay in Ghana forever. I doubt that it'll be the U.S. I don't have much money, but I got enough to maintain myself. And money goes so far once you leave America. You can live at a comfortable level, little or nothing. So I said, I want to go to Thailand. I want to go to Ethiopia. I did that. And I want to go to Belize in Central America. And if it's someplace I like better than Ghana, that's where I'm going. I'm going to stay. So I made my arrangements, went online, made the hotel reservation myself, booked me a ticket, didn't know nobody. Went to Bangkok. Bangkok's the capital, I guess. And my partner said it's 8 million or 14 million. I keep hearing both numbers. 8 million people in Bangkok, 14 million. Major city, brother. I get there, I get me a hotel. I'm out by the airport. I think the hotel was $12 a night, something like that. Nice hotel. Wow. Comfortable. Restaurant down there, free cost. Well, not free, but don't cost much, So I'm in the hotel. I stayed there for a week. I had a cold right after I got there. I was sick, so that put me behind a minute. But I was planning on staying in a week anyway. Then I go into the city and I get a hotel. And man, from the airport hotel, I one morning afternoon I called a taxi to this market I wanted to go to, Chatuchak Market, outdoor weekend market. It's humongous. Okay. They sell everything. Okay. It's big. Markets are big in a lot of countries. Like the city market here was real small, but other countries they focus on these outdoor markets. I went there in a taxi because I didn't know how far it was. Almost a 30-minute ride. Cost a little less than $10 for a 30-minute ride from the airport, KCI, to South Kansas City. Yeah. That's about how far it was.
You broke here.
Yeah. And the thing about it, I've seen all these skyscrapers. And it took me a long time to figure out I'm not looking at the same scenery. The scenery's changing. Wow. I'm not used to seeing that level of development nowhere. If I was from New York or Chicago, I'd be more used to it. But I haven't seen that much. Bangkok, brother, make a long story short, is either, they say probably closer to 9 million people. They say in the daytime it might be 14 million with the visitors and the people coming in to work and stuff. Right. It's a major city. Okay. Bangkok make Kansas City, not to disparage Kansas City, but it make it look like Tupelo, Mississippi. Wow. It ain't just big. Accra's big. Right. But Accra got dusty, dirty roads and backward stuff. Bangkok, man, it's up to date, modern. They got 3 rail systems. Wow. They got the SkyTrain, the subway, another train straight to the airport. Wow. Take you everywhere. They modern, brand new, and fully functional and efficient. And crowded.
Really?
Oh, wow. Man, they're crowded.
And inexpensive.
About $1 most places. Sometimes close to $1, give or take a few on either side of $1. Okay. You can get around just about anywhere you want to go on the train. Okay. Food is on the street more so than in Ghana. Ghana got a lot of street food. That's how people eat. But in Thailand, even more so. Food everywhere. And you get on the street, and if you're in the city, maybe it was $1.25 for a meal. You go to a sit-down restaurant, maybe $2 or $3, but it's very inexpensive. But it's a lot of rice and a lot of noodles. Okay. So it took me a minute. I had to find places because I don't eat meat. So I eat a little bit of fish, but I don't eat squid and
exotic
octopus, and they got all that there.
I can imagine.
Yeah, they eat all that. Their diet is more varied with the fish and the meat than it is in Ghana. The Asian diet in Thailand. The night before I left, I saw online somewhere in Bangkok they got over 500 buildings that are at least 50 stories tall. 500. Wow. It looks more impressive than Chicago from what I could see. And I didn't see the thugged out and the depressed. Everything is clean, new, neat, modern. Really? Oh, man.
They didn't have no little hood elements?
They may have. They did. I didn't see them.
They were tucked away real good.
It's a big city, so I didn't go everywhere. But the areas that I was in, oh, my God, I was so impressed. Wow. I went to a place called Paragon Center on Sukhumvit. Sukhumvit, one of the main areas, but it's a lot of main areas because of the size of the city. Huge. But Sukhumvit is right there by the train. Both systems interact. You can change lines and different stuff. And they got some notorious red light districts in that area. But they got a place called Paragon Center. Mm-hmm. It's a mall, 6 floors of designer names. Gucci, Givenchy, Rolex, all the designers I know, and then most of them I don't know. Mm-hmm. And not only are the designer stores inside the mall, but my partner I showed the video to yesterday, the flooring, the walls, the lighting, the whole thing is elegant. And it ain't like a mall sitting over by itself like the Mall of America, Minnesota, or this mall out in Overland Park that we go to. What's the name of that big mall in Overland Park?
No, Oak Park.
Oak Park Mall. It ain't like that sitting over here by somewhere. No, this big 6-story elevator up and down, floor to floor, exclusive environment. Right next door, same thing. It's not designer, but it's mall, it's shop, it's jewelry store, it's across the street, same thing as far as you can see. When you get to the corner, look left and right, it's the same thing as far as you can see. I've never seen so much shopping. Wow. Bangkok's a good place to go just to shop. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's reasonable?
Yeah, it's reasonable. My mom. Yeah, I wasn't shopping. So,
Right.
But I got this here.
Okay.
I should have brought my other one.
An American Eagle, okay.
American Eagle. I got this at the store. I paid like $8 for it. I got one that says Rolex on it, on the street. It says Rolex here. When I take off the band, it's leather band. It says Rolex on the band. On the back of here, it says Rolex. It looked like a Rolex. I paid $6 and something.
The Rolex.
Rolex. Wow. They said, brother, you should have brought something back. Right. Next time I will, just to give some friends. I wouldn't sell them as anything other than what they are, though. I wouldn't try to.
So what was your experience like there? I know your first one in the Philippines, you said, was really bitter.
Okay.
What was it like in Bangkok, in Thailand?
180 degrees opposite.
My goodness.
Yeah. I didn't have a bad experience. I left Dallas, Texas on Korean Airlines. I came back through O'Hare in Chicago. Mm-hmm. I was gone for 2 months, and I didn't feel like I got nothing racist, bad, negative. They treated me as well as Ghana, maybe better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Most of them don't speak English, so I couldn't talk to people like I could in Ghana. Right. Some I could. Around the hotels and certain places you go, you can find somebody who can speak English. But I had a very good experience. In fact, I'm tempted to go back there and stay. Wow. It was that good. Wow. Yeah, it was that good because, okay, I was having tooth pain before I left. Couldn't get to the dentist here. So I go to the dentist there. I get in today if I wanted to, but I set it for the next week. Had a little toothache. I got a crown here. I'm thinking that crown. So I go to the dentist, and they took it off, and, it was loose. That's what it was. It wasn't the tooth. It was the crown. It was loose. So they took it off, put it back on. Didn't charge me much. I forget what it was. It wasn't much. Maybe $6 or $7. And I get in right away. I didn't have to wait, They didn't know nobody. So then I was in a place called Pattaya, which is notorious whole city red light. This they call it, that's not all that's there, but that's what it's known for. From the Vietnam era, they kind of went off that way. And that's a really lot of the economy in Thailand, It revolves around those things. Buddhist country, they don't have the Jesus complex. They don't judge you, it's just what you do, you do. So anyway, I was in Pattaya. I go to Bangkok to this outdoor market I was telling you about. Come back on Saturday night, and I start seeing flashes of light. My right eye. I figured out which eye is coming from. Flashes. Never had that happen. It scared me. I don't know if I got a cataract, glaucoma. I don't know what's going on. I go online, start reading and researching. I figure it says it could be a detached retina, which could lead to blindness. Right. I'm afraid. I'm a long way from home. Right. I didn't have no money if I was at home. I probably couldn't do much, but it's even more intimidating here. So I went to on a Tuesday, I think it was. I went to an eye clinic. I couldn't get in the doctor right away. He said it was about 1 o'clock. He said, come back about 4:30. He's upstairs in surgery or something. I said, I ain't going to wait that long. So they said, well, come back tomorrow at 10:30. He gets here at 10. I said, okay, I'll do that. But instead, I went back to Bangkok, where I got these glasses I'm wearing. Because when I first got there, I was in Chinatown, barely in Chinatown. I went to an optical shop, real nice Thai sister. Her grandfather started the business, and it's extensive. It's a big place, glasses, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. She said they can make a pair of glasses in 20 minutes. Wow. And the frames don't cost that much. The eye exam is free. The lens isn't too expensive. So I knew I was going to come back and get some glasses made. But I said, well, I'll go back there and get an exam, do 2 birds in 1 stone. So I go back. Hope I ain't talking too much.
No, it's fine.
Okay. I go back there to get the eye exam. The guy that does it, he don't have no English skills, and I can't speak Thai. And I'm asking about these flashes. He don't know what I'm saying. So after he did the exam and got my prescription together, the same lady was there, and I told her about these flashes of light. Can he pick that up as glaucoma or whatever? She said no. She said, don't worry about the glasses. Go to the hospital right away because that could be serious. So I said, well, where is one? I don't know, you know. And I knew it was serious, and I was hoping she was going to tell me something else, but I appreciate she was honest. She says, one right across the street, and they don't charge that much. So I go across the street, literally, to the hospital. It was a government hospital. I didn't know at the time. And the doctor wasn't there. They said he'll be back tomorrow from 9 to 12. Well, I'm going 3 hours down the road, and I can't. I said, this is important. I think it's, you know, I really need to see somebody today. Is there anybody else you can refer me to? They said, well, there's another hospital, 10-minute taxi ride away. Lady wrote the address down, the name of the hospital, said, give it to the taxi driver, he'll know. He takes me to the hospital. I come in, emergency room's to the right, reception to the left. I go to the emergency room, and they said, no, go back, check in with reception first. So I do that. Somebody's sitting there. I wait about maybe 5 minutes, then I sit down. Another 5 minutes, they said I got to pay a $30 deposit, approximately, in time money. And they said, I told them who I was and out of the country and this and another. They said, so I paid the deposit, put it on my credit card. They take me upstairs and give me a card, ID for the hospital. Take me up to the second floor, sit me down in the area, sit there about 10 minutes. Somebody comes from the specialist area and gets me, sit me by the eye specialist. I sit there for 5 minutes. Somebody come in and get me, and they take me into the specialist. She looks at my eye, told them I'm seeing these flashes of light. She examines me. Then she says we need to dilate your eye so we can see the back of it. And she said it'll take about 30 minutes, but it won't come back to focus for about 4 hours. So I say, okay. So I sat out there. Over a 30-minute period, they dropped 5 drops in my eye. Over a 40-minute period, they bring me back to see the doctor. She looks at me with a laser, examines it real close. She says, it's not detached, but it's degenerating. And you need to check it again when you get home. You know, it just happens with age. And then it may not ever detach, but it's a possibility. Take me back to the cashier, and I got a refund. It wasn't even $30.
A refund?
Yeah, it wasn't even $30. It was about $26, $27. So that's very inviting for me in Thailand because it's a very modern society. It's very infrastructure. They got hospitals, dental clinics everywhere.
Right.
You know, and the systems on the streets, you can get around, the traffic flows, the lights stay on, the water flows, and I can drink water out the glass. I can't do that in Ghana. But there they say it's purified water, so it's not from the tap. I don't know where it comes from, but all the restaurants have it. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing too.
Water is crucial.
yeah. And lights too. The lights don't go off. In Ghana, lights go off a lot. It's part of living in Africa, you know. Right. You got to deal with it though. It's part of it, you know. Yeah.
Wow. That's
but in Thailand, it was totally opposite from the Philippines. Nobody was negative. I didn't get no dirty vibe from nobody. Everybody was friendly for the most part, you know. Met a real nice sister there before I left. She can't always speak no English. I can't always speak no Thai, but we just like each other, you know. I mean, really. Yeah. We like each other. I like this sister, you know. Yeah. I said, I don't know.
This is live. Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
I met brothers from New York. You know, he kind of told me what the deal is in Pattaya and with the women and the different stuff. And he had been living there since '99 and had a house built. I looked at a condo there, $39,000, small. You know, the rooms are smaller there, but that's pretty cheap for, you know.
The statue's smaller there, though.
Yeah, they're a little smaller. They ain't real small, but they're a little smaller. Yeah. But the thing is, brother, when you move out of here, you don't find the obesity. Wow. Americans are obese. They even said on the news, they said 40% of Americans, I heard it last week, are obese. Not fat, overweight, but obese. 40%. So that's the first thing I noticed when I came through O'Hara, the way people look. Everybody's overweight here. You not, but 90% of us are. You know, and I was too when I left here going back in 2016. I was bigger than I ever been. It's hard not to be. You know, it's the food, it's the environment, it's a lot of stuff. Yeah. So in Asia, they don't eat what we eat. And in Africa, they don't eat what we eat. So in both cases, they look fitter, they look strong, they look healthier. Younger. Yeah. The Africans do and the Asians do. You may see a few people overweight, but not like here. Most people are not overweight. Most people are physically fit, from the look of them anyway. Right. Yeah, and they're not real small people either. I didn't, you know. Africans, on the other hand, most of them are smaller than us in height.
Really?
Yeah, most of them. That's the thing I noticed in Ghana. You don't see many tall Ghanaians. You know, most of them around the same height. I don't. They have some that you don't see many people that's 6 feet. I didn't see many. Wow. Most of them under 6 feet, 5'5", no, maybe 5'7" to 5'8", mostly. Yeah, I didn't see many.
Interesting. Wow. Any closing thoughts you want to share with our listeners, Brother Ray?
Let me just see. I'm going to wrote some stuff down. I don't want to leave out nothing. You have to be careful. Let me see. The beaches are real fun in Ghana. They still had a traditional religion, you know. And when the going gets tough, that's where they go to the shrine in Ghana. The prices, haircut about $1.50. You know, a beer, you get a pint of beer, not the little
pint, right?
Pint about $2.
Wow.
A meal on the street, $1 to $4. You can build a house. You can buy land in Ghana. You can't buy land in Thailand. You can buy it in Ghana. Anywhere from $1,000 and up for a grand enough for a plot, 70 feet by 100 feet. You can buy beachfront property for maybe $3,000-$4,000. You can pay more now, depending on where it's at, but you can get land by the beach for $3,000 or $4,000 for a plot.
This is American money.
American money, yeah.
Right.
They got Panafest is the one that deals with us particularly, but they got all kind of festivals in Africa. And this is what I want to leave you with. One of the main social functions in Ghana that's really wonderful are funerals and weddings. And every weekend they're having funerals. And probably weddings too. Okay. But the way they do the funeral, it's more involved in the way we do it. The main part is 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But before Friday, Saturday, and Sunday roll around, for the last month, the family's been meeting. And not just the family, the neighbors, whoever's close. If you die in Ghana, if you're a Ghanaian or African, it's not just up to your children and your husband or your spouse to handle it. It's the extended family and his friends and his people close to you. We were all a part of this person's life.
Right.
They were a part of our life. So we all come in and talk about it. We all meet on it. We all sit around. We all hammer it out. Certain people have more rights and responsibilities than others. But the fact that it's such a collective thing is really quite wonderful. Then on Friday, they have the wake keeping. A lot of times the body's at home. People sitting around drinking and eating. Might be drummers and parties going on, you know, and the body's there. Then Saturday, they get up, they take the body to the cemetery. They come back on the property, usually where the person lives, and the drummers are there, and the family's there, and the friends, and we drinking and we eating, and it's like a party for real. Sunday, they go to church. They have the services. They come back to the property, and the same thing all day. It's really involved.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really intimate. It's really nice. It's really wonderful that it involves so many people. Yeah. Not just me and my brother and sister bear this burden, but my cousins, my uncles, my aunts. Everybody's involved in my father's life. Friends and family, you know, we all sit down together collectively.
And that's the African spirit, though.
It really is. That's one of the highlights, and it's a lot of good stuff in Africa. That's one of them. Same way with the weddings, you know, Africans are like Black Americans. They spend too much money on funerals and weddings.
They go all in.
And they talk about it in the media sometimes. They have articles in the paper where they write editorials about how we do with this stuff. You know, we do the same thing.
Man, that's our spirit. That's powerful, man.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Well, Brother Ray, I want to thank you for coming on Hebrew Vision Live and sharing your voice with us, man, your experiences. I pray that, you know, you continue to experience what you're doing and spread the love and the light that you exude. You know, that's definitely something I've picked up from you as I've known you over the years, man. And I just, you know, appreciate your energy and your experience.
Thank you. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you.
Indeed,
Thank you.
Indeed. And so we're going to go ahead and sign off. We want to thank our listeners for tuning in to Hebrew Vision Live. This is the voice of the people. We had the Inner World View of Brother Walter Ray here this evening, and we're going to definitely just, you know, extend the energy of life and light and love to the brother, or the elder, shall I say, as he continues his journeys.
Thank you.
But tune in again as we will continue our podcast. We have some shows coming up. We got an elder sister, who hopefully will be in contact with me. Mrs. Grant will be over here, and we'll be talking about some mental health issues. I got my brother Daniel Smith that will be talking about his entrepreneurial endeavors. He has the Porterhouse KC organization going on, where he hosts some speaking series and also some networking. So tune in as we will have these upcoming podcasts coming in the near future. So I want to sign off and thank you all again for tuning in to Hebrew Vision Live. Have a good evening. Peace and blessings. Shalom Aleichem.